live. Scott Towne. How you doing, bud?
Good, Brant. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I remembered that we talked about the topic of tonight in the first podcast that we did, and you weren't
Yeah.
sure if you were even allowed to talk about it yet.
Right. That's kind of when I broke the news. Yeah, I mean, people knew about it, but um, yeah, hadn't publicly been announced
Yeah,
at that point.
so as soon as I saw that it was everywhere yesterday, I was like, oh, we gotta do it.
Yeah.
I
No,
just,
that's awesome. Thank you. I
absolutely.
it's been I mean, it's been like almost ready to go to print. Like it could have been done like months ago, but there's just so many factors and you know, I have a new job. Will has so much going on, so with Dig, Will Smith. So
Yeah, and yeah, so I just figured we'd jump on here and talk about Greystoke. So for anyone who has no idea what we're talking about,
yeah, I know we're like
uh, this is Scott Town,
we've yet to
and
even mention what we're babbling about.
yeah, so I suppose you'd be better suited to go into detail about what Greystoke even is. Maybe we should
Okay,
start there.
easy enough. Greystoke is a print magazine, like a full size print magazine, um, for by and for BMX lifers. You know, it's mostly the median age of riders in it is probably like 45, but it's for riders that are still riding. It's for collectors. It's for anyone that's just into BMX. You know, that's just feeding the obsession, or left BMX and got back into it, or started riding as an adult, or whatever the case. You know, it's for the gray beards, bald dude. Someone DM me and said it needs to be called Bald Stoke for me, which applies to me too. But
That's
yeah,
funny.
that's what it's about. And it's published by Dig BMX. It's the kind of the brainchild of Will Smith, the publisher of Dig. And Will approached me about this, man, a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I was kind of like, a magazine, I don't know, man. But over a year ago, like early 2022 probably, we had like some real serious talks about it, and started working on it last year, over a year ago, probably
Hmm.
June of 2022 was my first like trip that I made under the premise of, gathering content and photos and for Greystoke. So it's been a while in the making for sure.
Nice. So it's awesome to see it coming to light finally, and people can pre-order it now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's even some clothing that's out there for pre-order as well. I'm curious, what exactly what do you how would you label your role in all of it?
My role, I'm
Yeah.
the editor of the magazine.
Nice.
So Will's the publisher. I mean, it's published by Dig BMX, but Will is the publisher and I'm the editor. That's my role. I
Mm.
wrote I wrote a lot of the stuff. Um, the editor of a magazine is like the manager. Like I coordinated not all the articles, but most of them, even the ones I didn't write. Like I worked with different writers and reached out to different people to work on different pieces, or people that we knew. My I've been around BMX a long time, as has Will. So our network of people is pretty deep, and if we don't know someone, it's usually one person away from
Mhm.
getting in touch with someone that can help us out.
Yeah.
Like Jared Sony, who worked for Ride BMX way back when, and just a great photographer and writer. He wrote the DMC, the Dennis McCoy piece. Like that's one of the main pieces in the magazine, is a big feature on Dennis McCoy, because he kind of epitomizes what Greystoke's all about. Except it's different with Dennis because he's one of the most well-known BMX riders ever, right?
Yeah.
But he's in his mid 50s and still kills it on the bike and never ever stopped. Like has never stopped. Besides, recovering from injuries or whatever. Like he's never ever left BMX at all. So he's he's kind of the poster child for the magazine, and he's in it. And there's so many people that, like, I don't want to pick it apart, but like in hindsight, as I look at the layouts and stuff, it's like, wow, so and so's not even, it's not even a picture of that person in this magazine that really should be. But there's just so many people, because BMX has been around for so long at this point that, you know, it's just a big thing. Like, there's so many, like, it was literally a message just popped up while we were talking from someone that I shot photos of this just exquisite 70s bike that they have. And I just kind of broke the news. It didn't, the photos didn't make the cut for the first issue because we just had too much. Like, we hit issue 2, we could probably finish in a month because we have like more than half the, you know, half a magazine worth of content already done, like laid out and everything. Like, it's just, we just had to make cuts, you know. And it's a 132 page magazine. It's a full length. Yeah. If you think like that at the end I've worked, you know, I have a whole history in magazines, and at the end of some magazine runs, like, they'll be down to like 48 pages or 60 pages or whatever, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a pretty healthy size. It's not like Dig, like the last issue of Dig, you know, is annual magazine at this point. Like, this is the last one that came out last fall, and it's however many pages, you know, I don't even know, but 220, I guess. It's like a goddamn catalog, you know, like a Sears catalog. Am I dating myself by saying that? Do you know what Sears is? Have you ever seen a Sears catalog?
I think I remember, was it J.C. Penney catalogs?
Yeah, there you go,
I remember those.
But anyone that's into Greystoke will certainly get those references.
That's funny.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's the deal. Print mag. It's, we try to have a big emphasis on riders that are still riding, you know, like current photos.
Mm-hmm.
Like Clem Miller that owns Colony. That's a good example, because he just had his, I didn't even watch it yet, but he just dropped his 49th birthday video today.
Yep.
So pretty huge. There's a photo of him in there. And we tried to make it not, it would be easy to be all industry people, you know, because there's so many like pros and former pros that are still, you know, still going strong, that kind of fit the parameters of the magazine too. But we tried to have a lot of just kind of real world people in there too. So
That's pretty awesome. There's no shortage of older dudes that seem to either be just like coming back into it, or even I get comments all the time from people saying I'm 42 years old and I just started riding and
yeah,
whatever. And I've beaten this dead horse into the ground, but sometimes I really feel like there might be more dudes getting back into BMX than there are like young kids getting into it
getting
for the
into
first time.
BMX, yeah, that's kind of a scary uh, ratio. I hope that's not accurate, but it might be true.
It just feels like it sometimes.
Yeah, I don't think you're that far off with that sometimes, or in some cases either, you know, because, and it's not a bad thing if there were just like an excessive number of 40-year-old dudes getting into BMX. Who cares? Like,
Yeah.
if wherever the numbers come from is fine with me. And I think also there's a lot of people, like the one, I always see those comments too, by the way, and that's like some lone dude that's just hitting the skate park by himself in the morning that no one really knows about. In a lot of cases, you know, like there's a dude that lives in Kalamazoo where I live, and I was at the skate park one day, this was last year, like during lunch, like middle of the day, and I saw someone riding flatland on the tennis court next to the skate park, and I'm like, who the hell is that? Like, it was clearly like an adult, you know. I'm like, how is there a person riding flatland that I don't know at the skate park in Kalamazoo? And it took almost a year to meet the dude. Like, we finally, because my family group chat blew up. It was like, hey, you have to pick up Dylan from basketball or whatever it was, and I had to like run out, you know, leave the skate park. And I think I even yelled "What's up" to that dude, but I didn't meet him, and it took like, you know, deducing comments and through Instagram to figure out who he was. His name is Luke, and he's a rad dude, and I've ridden with him a few times now. But, you know, he lives in Kalamazoo and hasn't lived here that long, you know, and just started riding BMX again not that long ago. But It's pretty rad. Like he's a psychologist who rides
Whoa,
BMX.
that's
It's
that's
super
cool.
cool. Yeah.
So it feels like those kind of people are the people that Greystoke is for.
Yeah, absolutely. In the same.
And I don't know, man. I felt like for so long that there's just been like not a lot for those people. And
Right.
it's felt like the BMX industry, at least up until a couple years ago, when they started putting on people like Corey Anastasio again and giving him a frame and people like that, it was been up until that stuff started happening again. It just felt like the BMX industry ignored those older guys for whatever reason. I mean, it's just all you saw was younger kids, and now it feels like we see people like Corey and Doyle getting put on
Hmm.
to S&M and Fit, and I feel like there's more that have come out recently since then too. And
Yeah, sure.
now we have
Right. Nyquist. Like Nyquist.
yeah.
Nyquist kind of like DMC. Like he's not nearly as old as DMC, but he's always ridden for Haro. He's just always been there. He's always been in it. So you kind of take him for granted. That's the thing with DMC. He's taken for
Hmm.
granted because there's no big comeback. Like he never left.
Yeah,
Same with Nyquist. It's kind of the same story. But he's in his 40s now and he still kills it. And I know he's involved more on a different level as a contest, as a coach or whatever, and all that stuff, which is great. And I'm glad. And Van Homan, same deal.
Bestwick.
Yeah, Bestwick's a great example of that. Guys that, just made the transition and stayed within BMX somehow, which is not that easy to do. It's not that easy to make a living in BMX. Believe me, it's not easy at all.
But
But
all of that is what makes it so cool to see this thing that is like, this is for you guys.
yeah, well, it's by us too. Like Will is dyed in the wool BMX dude. I certainly am. Like
Hmm.
everyone. Shad Johnson from Goods, it helped out so much. Like Jared Sony, even like Todd Lyons and Mike Escamilla, Rooftop. Like he really orchestrated this big piece on the POW house, which is a famous house in the early '90s,
Hmm.
where so many pros lived at, and it's just a big part of the you know Southern California scene, kind of during the dead era of BMX, and quite frankly, kind of during the part of BMX when I was disconnected from it. Like in the mid '90s, I wasn't really paying attention to BMX, honestly. But yeah, so that's who it's for. And and to your point about BMX kind of being marketed more toward the older riders, like a lot of that's like the retro bikes that like GT and Haro and
Yeah.
everyone. I mean, Haro. I work for Haro now, but Haro really went all in with that, and it's huge. And then Mongoose is on board with that, and it's cool to see, and I like it. And it, you know, vintage BMX bikes are outrageously expensive. I'm kind of in that world. You can even see behind me, there's bikes all over the place. But if you can buy, even if it's $1,000 to buy like a top of the line reproduction bike that looks like the one from the '80s, but it's with modern spec and modern geometry, it's more rideable. You don't have to worry about bending the forks or the tightening the headset with your hand every time you ride it, like
Yeah.
a real vintage bike, or $500 skin wall tires that are gonna blow to pieces when a 230-pound dude tries to do a Miami hopper on it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in that, and there's just a lot more older riders, and a lot of company owners are older dudes now. They're still in it, and they still ride, like Chris Moeller and Ian
Yep.
Morris, and so many.
Most of them.
Robbie Morales, there's so many. They're kind of both those dudes I just named are all a little younger than me, but they're all part of this generation, So that's part of it, It's kind of hard to ignore the demographic that you're part of when you are running a company and you see, like, God, for S&M especially, like they so much of the S&M clientele are like 40-year-old dudes that just live by the shield and would never go any other way. And I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah. And so to see something like Greystoke come out with those people in mind, that's just, I'm trying to, put an exclamation point on how awesome it is for people. And curious to hear your like approach when it comes to trying to put something like this together, because as you said earlier, there's like an endless amount of content that you could
Yeah,
put into something like this.
yeah, there really is. That was tough. One thing I do want to speak to is a print magazine, right? Like for your generation, like you read magazines or whatever, but before videos and everything, and I know I'm talking like an old guy that I am, but magazines were everything. Like that's all there was.
Yep.
So for dudes that are like 40 and up, like magazines still hold a really special place in their heart. So that's part of why there's so, people are really excited about this. Like the response to this, like Greystoke Instagram has been active for months and it with no posts or anything. And all of a sudden there's hundreds and hundreds of followers and so many DMs and people reposting it, and it's pretty awesome to see. But to your question, yeah, it was tough because we are covering a broad range of not subjects, it's all the same subject, but there's an historical element, like there's photos from the early 70s. Like one of the best things in this are these photos by this photographer Mel Stoutenberger, who took photos in Southern California like at the very beginning of BMX, and they're just these amazing photos. And he's the coolest dude. I wrote an article about him a few years ago for Crandall's Least Most website, and he's just super gracious and just a good dude. But his photos are amazing, and anyone that is a fan of BMX will appreciate the photos, even if they can't figure out why the bikes look the way they do or whatever,
Yeah.
because the bikes are crazy looking. But um, but it can't all be that, and it can't all be like collector stuff. Like collector thing is kind of tough because BMX bikes, as cool as they are and as cool looking as they are, like man, if you're standing 50 feet away from a row of BMX bikes, it's hard to tell a bike from 1978 versus a brand new bike. You know what I mean? Like at a glance,
Yeah.
until you're really up close and looking at the details. So we had to be selective about that part of it too. And part of it is like the photography is such a key component when it comes to stuff like that, because it's all in the presentation, right? Like you're looking at pictures and the pictures just have to be insane. And I'm not that level of photographer, and I've really, really tried hard to step up my game for this with my friend Sean Newton is definitely my photo coach. As long as I've been shooting photos since before that dude was even born, but he's just so helpful to me. And he shot a bunch of photos for this that are like in that preview. You see some of his photos already, and he has photos throughout it. But then there's other things that, like, I don't want to give too much away, but there's an article on survivors with some riders that have faced like real serious, real world health situations,
Yeah.
and just working through that and where they're at and how it pertains to BMX, and like, did BMX help them get through it? Are they back on the bike? That kind of thing. And then there was another piece slated for the same first issue, and it wasn't the same subject, but it was kind of equally heavy. So it's like, man, this can't be like all this super heavy content, and it's not negative, it's positive, because it's all, for the most part, happy ending stuff. But we didn't want to like weigh the magazine down with just all this super emotionally heavy content, so we're holding some stuff for the second issue in that regard. And part of it was space too. Like there's just so much stuff, and like some of these photo features take up a lot of room too, because we're not running little photos, like they're big photos. So 132 pages, but then like this article is 10 pages long, and there's 6 full page photos. So there's got to be room for words somewhere in it, and there is a lot of copy and a lot to read. So
Was it a challenge because we're talking about, including old stuff, getting a hold of things that were quality enough to make it onto a print piece of paper?
oh yeah, like, yes, for sure. There's an article that comes to mind, and hopefully, and I had to push it back, again, I don't want to give anything away, but we just could not come through with photos. Like we just did not have the visuals for it, and it's such a rad piece. And the interview, I was granted this interview with this just absolutely iconic person, and we just don't have the photos to go with it, So hopefully they'll magically appear like photos from 1978, like, but
Yeah.
they do exist, like they're rumored to exist, but we just don't have our hands on them. Or you know how this works too, like we have this photo, but it's super low resolution, and that's the only photo. Like
Yep.
we can't it can't be a half page on a you know 11 by 14 magazine page. It'll just look terrible. So there's nothing like that. Nothing sliding through. No pixelated photos. No jagged edges. No nothing. Like there are, of course, there's photos that are grainy or whatever. Just because the subject matter or the actual heart of the photo sometimes is more important than the quality. But from a like modern technology aspect, like there's nothing. We didn't let anything slide through.
And I'm sure everybody can appreciate the fact that there's that level of a standard there of
Yeah,
quality.
sure. And anyone that's seen Dig would know that. Dig doesn't have there's no shitty photos in there.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, that's so rad. So like, are you the one who's laying the pages out and everything too?
No, that's not me at all. There's a guy named Luke that I don't know that helps out with Dig. That is one of Will's guys that laid it out. This guy Mark Ward came in kind of late and drew. I don't know if you saw that graphic today that we posted.
I'd
Like
have to look.
yeah, look, dude, it's just a
On
cool
Instagram?
graphic. Yeah, on the Greystoke Instagram. I didn't post it on mine.
I'll pull that up right now.
Yeah, you'll like it. Anyone would like it. But he just came. It's so weird too because I work for Haro now, and that same guy reached out to me
Oh,
about
you're
some
talking
Haro
about.
content because he's done graphics for Haro. He did Chad Curley's frame graphics recently and did like the race bike graphics for Haro, but he also did this Greystoke graphic. So I've been dealing with him through different emails. Scott at Haro Bikes and Scott at the Greystoke. So
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I had it
it
pulled
is.
up right there. I did see that. That is
Yeah,
a rad graphic, and it looks to be really well done too.
yeah, he's an amazing artist, and yeah, and it's just so on point. Like it's a twin top tube bike with tough wheels, and it has a number plate and black flag bars on the helmet that Will was like, should we add bars to the helmet? Like we have our influences all over it. will
That's
had a will had a number plate company in the mid 80s called Jive, and if you look closely, that bike has a Jive number plate, which
mm-hmm.
you have to really know with stuff like that. Like
Oh my
that
goodness, Easter eggs.
yes, exactly.
That's so cool. And that's another thing. I mean, even thinking about just the art aspect of BMX throughout the years too, of including, I mean, there's so many people like Poor Boy Steve and Damien who are still doing it, never stopped doing it, or if
And
they did, they started back up. And
yeah,
that's, I don't know, there's so much that could be done. And I feel like there's Instagram pages for stuff like this where you've got, older things being posted, the early 2000s Instagram page, which is still like just a very small segment of everything. It seems
it's
like,
pretty specific, but it's right on. I love that's James, who I think we talked about him
yeah,
before, but yeah, he does really rad things.
but like those Instagram pages exist, and we all, I don't know if everybody knows, but Instagram sucks for like searching for things. If you were trying to
Oh yeah,
find, a specific post, it sucks. And if it's not on YouTube in a video format, then stuff gets lost on Google. People don't pay for their website hosting. Things
right.
just disappear. Like if you had, there's a whole era of BMX that got lost to MySpace.
Oh right, of
Just
course,
just
or
because it's gone.
Vimeo.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
Vimeo too.
yep. And
So
Vimeo is like such a rad format. Like I know a lot of people still prefer Vimeo because the quality is sharper, the colors are better, and all that. But man, you good luck finding something on Vimeo, and stuff just disappeared that was on Vimeo for years. I know that to be true. So
Exactly. And so that's another thing that makes it so significant that an entity as large in BMX as Dig is putting together something so substantial where zines are amazing and everybody who makes zines keep doing what you're doing.
yeah,
It's like the zine and then you've got another step above that's just you're
yeah,
taking everything to another level forward.
yeah. It's pretty huge, man. Like I'll be so excited to see, just to hold it in my hands will be amazing. Like I'm not gonna lie, when Will sent me, I haven't even seen the entire magazine, but he sent me the individual layouts for all the articles, so it doesn't include the ads and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people are backing it. Like there's ads throughout it and everything, so that's huge too. Just people just really having faith in it. Like for issue 2, it's like, here's issue 1. Do you want to be in issue 2? Like that's an easy sell. Like you see
Hmm.
this great product, but some people, because this is not necessarily people that even know what Dig is about at all, like having faith in advertising in this, it's like, oh, that sounds great. Here's our money, so that's a pretty big deal. But I don't know what my point with that was.
Well, I
But
think I could take that even further, and just that is the way that it should be. It's because
yeah,
I feel like there's some instances in BMX where people support things just because of who is doing it, not necessarily what they're getting out of it. They just want to
right.
support the people involved. Whereas like that's like a way to like kind of kill off things because if you're just give throwing money at something without any kind of expectation of standards or what you get in return, then eventually you're gonna like if it's not whatever. But what I'm
Yeah,
saying is like
that's not a healthy approach.
yeah, so it's even better to hear that it's like well maybe people don't know that it's affiliated with Dig at all, but they see what the project is for the value that it has and want to support that. And I think
Yeah,
that is the way everything should be.
yeah, I agree. But BMX is tough. It's in a tough place. Not people don't have extra money in
Yeah.
BMX right now. There's not people aren't fluid at all. So just that people had faith enough in the project without even really seeing anything. Like we didn't
Hmm.
really have anything to show them besides like this, you know, 2-page PDF that kind of broke it down.
So cool.
So it's pretty rad. And like all those images you've seen in the last couple of days, like those aren't even real. Like it's there's no actual magazine yet.
Oh yeah.
They're mock-ups, and they're beautiful. Like that's the magic of Will and Luke and those guys. So
Yeah.
that's huge. Oh, I know what I was getting at. But when I was looking at the actual layouts, like I got really emotional. Like I had to like stop looking at them. It was just like, and I don't know why. It's not because it was some insurmountable amount of work that was so overwhelming that I was so relieved it was done. Or it was nothing like that at all. I never felt that way for a minute. It never felt like work. Like I loved it. I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Like when we started, I'm like, how is this a job? Like how am I like it's a magazine for everything that I'm about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was always something I wanted to do. Like, I mean, sure, it was frustrating sometimes, like just waiting, like, dude, I just need a quote about this. Please send me anything. Like I'll feed you questions and just give me answers. I have to have words from you on this. You're such an important part of this. And someone might think I'm picking on them with this, but it applies to about 10 different people. So I'm not picking on
Yeah,
one
if you
specific
think
person.
it's you, it's
Yeah.
also several
If you
other
think it's
people.
you, it is you, but it's several other people too.
That is too funny.
Yeah, but that's true with anyone. So in anything, it's not like you know they don't realize that you know
Oh,
that
people are just
the
busy.
whole thing is like pivoting on just a
Right.
single line of information from them. But sometimes it is. And some of the things in this really were that it was that important to have you know that information from a specific person. You can't. There's nothing made up in this at all.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, it's one of those things where you have to have what you're looking for it to even work.
Yeah.
You're not fabricating any kind of a story like what people can do with, whatever types of magazines where they're writing an article about some random subject. Like
Right.
you're talking about history in BMX and
Yeah.
people.
It's factual and quote based and right. Exactly. This is a funny aside. There, we tried to be, of course, a lot of it's US based because, you know, despite what some Europeans will tell you, BMX really started in Southern California in the 70s. That stuff in the Netherlands or whatever. People hate me right now.
Oh God, you're
If
getting
anyone's
yelled
listening to that,
at through a
like that's
screen.
something different. That's something different. Sorry, I know it's motocross on bicycles, but it's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we really tried to be like international and like trying to communicate. Like there's so many rad things in Japan that are so perfect for Greystoke, and we so want them to be in Greystoke. We're trying to communicate using like Google Translate to try to talk to like
Yeah.
someone just in Japan, just full Japanese BMX rider that doesn't speak any English. Like their Facebook profile is all Japanese characters. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going for it. I have to use this photo, or I want to see if this person has another photo or whatever, And a lot of those didn't get very far, but there is some rad stuff that, like just like I'm kind of rabbit hole guy. Like if
Mm.
I just see, like I saw one person I'm talking about, and there was more than one of those, from Japan in particular. But I saw this dude's profile picture. He had like Moto Mag wheels riding a skate park like in the 70s. And I'm like, holy shit, what's this about? And I just dug deeper and deeper and found like these just insane photos. And that was one of the dudes I'm talking about. But when I really looked at photos, they're like iPhone pictures of photos with glare on them, and like going back to the quality thing. I'm like, oh, we can't use that. Can you scan this? And like, they don't, I don't know, like just lost in translation with some of it, or just they don't have a scanner, like,
Mm-hmm.
can you take it somewhere and have it scanned? Like some things that like, I know you're the same way, like I'm a problem solver kind of person. Like I'll figure out a way to do it. They're just like, no, this is the only way I can do it. I'm like, okay, thanks. Can't do it. Can't use it.
The
Sorry.
struggles of just trying to
Yeah.
like hold to those standards and not let anything slip by that would take away from it. I get it.
Yeah. And something like that particular instance, like that photo to me was just like Godhead. Like, dude, that is such a perfect photo. Like, no one's ever seen this photo. Because, I mean, I saw it on Facebook, so someone's seen it. But
Mm-hmm.
like, it's really new to the world, and it's so important to me to have that photo. And to that dude, he's just like, like maybe he just doesn't care. Like, it doesn't mean that much to him. And like, I'm trying to explain this magazine, and he's like, "What? What do you mean?" Like, and I'm not saying anything about him not understanding, like it was a communication thing. It just literally doesn't mean that much to that dude to have his picture
Mm-hmm.
in a magazine or whatever the case. So sometimes I know that's the case. Like sometimes it just meant so much more to me or us than the person we were reaching out to. And they're just like, oh, yeah, this is what I got. There's some pretty good photos on my Facebook if you want to check them out. I'm like, oh, fuck, man, you got to have something else. I know you do.
Yeah. Yeah,
And a lot
that's
of
that.
people, and, and, and again, if certain people will think I'm talking about them, but this applied to a lot of people, like more famous photographers and stuff, that their photos like have been like heisted and they've been used without credit so many times that they don't want to share their photos. And
Mm.
I get that 100%, or they want to be paid for their photos or whatever. Like I totally get it. But at the same time, like we're not, no one's making any money off this magazine at all. Will told me yesterday that the print charge went up $1,000, just kind of from one week to the next. Like all of a sudden it cost $1,000 more than it cost the previous week.
Sick.
So cool, thanks. Like, I mean, it's so expensive to print a magazine. Shipping is so expensive. Like the like shops can order this. Here's a note to shops.
Yep.
It comes in at, you get 10. They're like pre-packaged, 10 or 19, and it's not 20 because at 20 it bumped it up into the next like postage
Mm.
level, so the freight was too much. Like there's so many things that factor in that seem like ridiculous. Like yeah, we're getting a 19 pack of magazines, but a 20 pack bumped it up into the next price level for shipping. So
Well,
it's like that. It's just silly, you know?
if it was a 20, it would have needed to be a 21 because whoever's buying it for the shop's going to keep one for themselves.
Right.
So it would have been 19 even if they did buy 20.
Good point, Brant. Thank you.
Boom. Problem solved.
Yeah.
But what you're describing to me, all these struggles, with getting pictures from people or knowing that they have more, or needing the quote and all of these things. It's like there's the standard aspect we keep talking about, but there's also just what's screaming to me is that you're just being an artist putting together, like trying to make this art piece and all of these moving parts are in there until you get to this final thing that everybody gets to see, and the artist in you is just trying to make it the best possible thing.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, and I don't mean to complain. I'm not really
It's not
complaining,
complaining.
but that is just part of the process. That's part of being the editor, you know. I
Yep.
mean, you're the one coordinating it, and like, you know, like I said, nothing's made up in this. Like you can't recreate photos, you know. Like I will tell you, there's one there's one photo that is it's it's not faked. It's a real photo that I took myself, and I took the other photos for the article. But I took all these photos of these bikes of different eras at this show in California last year, and we were kind of missing mid '80s freestyle bike. And a friend that moved here from California not long ago, like he started riding, which is awesome. And his name's Chris, and we've been riding together. Uh, I was like, "Do you have any freestyle bikes?" I really, because he knew about the magazine. I'm like, "Do you have any freestyle bikes? Because I really need to get a photo of one that looks like these other photos." Like I was reaching out to people on BMX Museum that had like a mid '80s GT or Haro. Like,
Mm.
"Hey, do you have any other photos of this? Like this," and I would just get dead lettered, like no response, or people would be like, "Oh, you can use those photos." I'm like, "No, man, a photo of it leaning in your garage is not going to work," you know.
Yeah.
So and again, he moved here not that long ago from California, and he has a collection of super, super rad bikes. And he put together a mid '80s GT Performer so I could shoot photos of it. And I
That's
took it
awesome.
behind the local Walmart because it was a similar background to the photos I shot in California, and it's in the same layout. And now that you know it, like you could pick it out, but it's like no one would ever say, "Hey, that background is totally different on this one," because it really isn't. But it is a Walmart in Plainwell, Michigan, and not the back of the convention center in Carson, California, where I shot the rest of them.
That's too
Which that
funny.
so that's a funny. There's all kind of little dumb stories, but that was the big show in Carson, the BMX Society show in June of 2022. So a year, well over a year ago, and they're just like cream of the crop vintage bikes there, and a lot of collector dudes aren't, they're just like average dudes that are into BMX bikes. So like
Mm-hmm.
we don't know each other. I'm just some random dude with a camera, and I want to shoot photos of certain bikes, but I'm not. You've been a bunch of old school bike shows now. Like the bikes are just lined up, like they don't look good sitting there, and the backgrounds are cluttered and everything. So, like approaching someone with some mid '70s Redline that's worth $8,000 and asking if I can take it over there on the other side of the building to shoot photos of it. They're like, wait, now what do you want to do?
I want
And
you
every
to
one of
jump
those,
on it and ride it over there.
yeah, exactly. Every single one of those people that I approached agreed to do it, but every single one of them came with me,
Oh yeah.
which I don't blame them at all. But
Probably.
that was pretty rad because I made friends with people too, and then, you know, unfortunately, not all those bikes will make it in the magazine, but some of them will. So, and everything will make it eventually, if we keep
Yeah.
going. It's just
Yeah.
a lot crammed into the first issue already.
That gave me a couple ideas. So one, I think it'd be
You're starting a magazine.
no, not even. I don't have that kind of time. I don't know how you even did it. But
Really, I did have time during the heart of when we were putting it together, but
well, the one idea is that it could be cool if once it's delivered, we chat again and talk about like stuff to do with the things in it. Like once it's been out for a little while,
Yeah,
since we don't want to give away too much of it now, we want people to actually be able to see it. It'd be
sure.
cool to like take a look and just get backstory, on some of those stories of fun adventures to get that story and
Oh,
whatever.
that'd be rad. Yeah, I like that.
And then,
Honestly, I think it's going to sell out. Like at the rate it's already, like the pre-orders in just one day, and like the shop orders that are coming through is crazy. Like we might have to up the print count. And like I was talking about how much it costs to print, like that's a gamble. Like you're like
yeah,
forecasting production for something you've never made before, right? Like Will knows how many digs to make because he's been making dig for 30 years, and the last 8 years it's an annual once a year. He kind of has a general idea, but this is brand
right.
new market. It's really a different market. There's some crossover from dig, but not all of it.
Yeah, man, and I think this is gonna hit totally like the people who don't ever go to skate parks but do go to bike shows because they
Oh
like
yeah,
building bikes and all of those people. Uh,
yeah.
Another idea that I had while you were talking about that stuff was that it could be super awesome, and maybe you've probably already thought about this, to take like old photos of people who still ride today and then have that person recreate, go out
Oh yeah.
and
Well, Brent, that is a great idea, and we tried to do that, and think I don't think we successfully pulled it off, but we did try to do that with a few different people that ended up being in the magazine, but it was either one or the other.
Gotcha.
There, I have to say with Dennis McCoy, dude, the Dennis McCoy thing is insane. Have you ever talked to Dennis McCoy? Have you ever met him anywhere?
Uh-uh.
You would love him.
One day, Dennis. One day.
Yeah, dude, he is absolutely amazing. He remembers everything. To every year, every event he's been to, and that dude's had more concussions than anyone, like
Mm-hmm.
short of Matt Hoffman probably, but
Yeah.
he remembers fucking everything. For example, and I'm not giving away too much, in the Dennis McCoy article, and it's a big article, there's a photo of him riding from every year since he started riding BMX,
What?
right? Every single year, 1978, 1979,
Yeah.
1980, through 2023, right?
Yeah.
As we're putting this thing together, I would text him, like, I'm talking to Will. It's like, okay, Will would send me a message. We need 2009. Like, these are random years. This isn't, we need, like, if you ask me for a photo from 1977 when I started racing BMX, I could find that. But between that and 2022 and 2023, it's going to take me a while.
Yeah.
Okay, Dennis, we need photos from 1998, 2001, and 2012. And like 10 minutes later, he would send me photos from each one of those years. Like, this is Dew Tour in Portland. This is in Kansas City at this ramp at this dude's house. My friend Mike shot it. Like, every detail. Like,
That's
I'm
amazing.
not even making up that timeline. Like, oh, it might be an hour because I'm not at home right now. I'm at the skate park. Like, he's at the skate park almost every time I texted the dude. Like, he rides all the freaking time. But he's just so awesome, and just like a bottomless pit of BMX information and memories and stats. And
He's a
I mean,
hero.
to be perfectly frank, it's mostly as it applies to Dennis McCoy. It's Dennis McCoy information about Dennis McCoy, but he remembers everything, and it's super rad.
That
And
is
I'm
right.
excited for people to see that because there's so much good stuff in there, and he's so funny. Like, I didn't see, like, that article I didn't even write. Like, I wrote an intro for it, and then Jared Sony did this interview and also wrote an intro for it. And then Mark Luman, who's a famous BMX magazine guy from the 80s, wrote another sidebar thing for it. So I just, like, I wrote so many things that aren't even in this magazine because there wasn't room, or it was kind of, I guess that was the only case where it was already covered by someone else. But, you don't want to be redundant with things. So
Yeah.
how many people are watching? My YouTube homepage is open, and there's a premiere for a podcast, and 13 people are watching.
That's funny. We got 18 currently.
All right.
Yeah, we're beating that one.
We're right on par with the All Things BMX show with Barry Nobles.
Oh, wow. Big name there.
Let me hit
So,
refresh. Maybe it's more than that. Anyway,
so sounds like you guys already thought of that idea.
it is
Did
a great idea.
did you did you say earlier that you guys were having just like there was the notable people, but then also people outside of that too, just like random people who had quality stuff or you
Oh yeah,
came
yeah,
across. So I have a really cool story of people that I met at the Buckeye Bike Show that could be on your radar potentially because this guy, he randomly came up to me. He's like, "Hey, I like watching your videos." And I was filming that day, so I was like, "You got a bike here? Show me your bike." And I had no idea what I was about to be in for. This guy walks me over and he's like pointing at they have this whole display and there's several, of the modern Haros and then there's an old Haro freestyler like it's got mags on it, it's whatever. And so he just starts telling me about his story and everything about how he and his dad ride together currently. This
Oh
guy's
wow.
like 40. And
Yeah.
then his dad walks up and his dad's got, white hair and white beard and so we're just talking. And he's like, "Yeah, that's my original Haro freestyler from back in like we bought it new at a bike shop in Dayton, and I still have it, and it's like a
That's
complete
awesome.
bike." And then he pulls up a picture of a bunch of like Polaroids and pictures of his dad riding that bike on the half pipe that they had in his backyard. So like
That's awesome.
the bike is right there. They still have the bike and they still have the photos. He just took a picture of all of them and was zooming in on it. And like you can see Haro painted on the ramp and just, dude, it's seriously so sick. And it's like they already have everything that you would need to do something about it.
Oh, that's rad. I love it.
It's
Yeah,
just
that is right up our alley.
the craziest thing because he's just like, "Hey, giving me a compliment." I'm like, "Let me see your bike," and then that
Yeah,
happened.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
So
That um that's funny you talk about like the logos painted on the ramps and stuff. Like that doesn't because people don't build their own ramps anymore for the
mhm,
most part because there's skate parks everywhere, you
yeah,
know? And trust me, building your own ramp leaves a lot to be desired. I have many homemade ramps that were just pieces of shit that were unrideable. It's no wonder I didn't learn to ride ramps until I was like 38 years old.
fair. My first one was a vert 4 foot quarter pipe because I didn't know.
Wow. Right? You always see those like in the I used to pass this one not far from here in this backyard. And I never saw anyone riding it, and it was totally that. Like vert, it was a half pipe, wasn't even a quarter. Like a vert quarter, you could kind of ride
Mm-hmm.
that, right? This is a
Yeah.
vert. I swear to God, it was vert, 4 feet high with like a foot of vert, like this, like it was like a fingerboard ramp, but it was in someone's backyard.
It's so funny. Another thing I saw is that there's the Greystoke YouTube channel. Is that or was that on Dig?
Uh,
No, that was on
that
Dig.
was it was on Dig, yeah. There's
But there was a video.
yes,
So what
yep.
was that video? I didn't have a chance to watch it yet.
That I'm laughing because it's a video. It's totally Greystoke. It wasn't really made for Greystoke, but
Mm,
as it kind of came to be, it was like, oh, this would be perfect for Greystoke because it's about this group of like 50-plus-year-old BMX dudes that grew up in Northern Ireland, which is where Will's from. Will is in it. Will's one of the guys, but these other guys are kind of the nucleus of this video, and they built their own indoor skate park in Northern Ireland. That's I think still there. At the end, it like they closed it, and someone bought it and reopened it. So hopefully it's still going. But I'm laughing because I watched it last night, and their accents are so thick. I'm like, dude, I can't understand what people are saying at all. So I turned on closed captions on YouTube, and YouTube didn't know what they were saying either because it just didn't even make sense. It was just like yeah, it sounded like he said quarter pipe, but that's not what he said. Like I don't know, I can't even explain it. But it's worth a laugh to watch it and turn on the closed captions because they don't line up at all. You're like, there's no way that's what that dude just said.
yeah, you got to be from there to fully be able to understand
Yeah,
everything.
they think we have accent. They don't know what the hell we're saying.
That's pretty funny.
I'm glad you used that same photo of me when I'm cross-eyed and look like I got hit by a car.
I was in a
There-
rush.
There's a little too much of me in this magazine. I hate to say that. Like, I mean, obviously I wrote a lot of it, and I don't mean that, but like, there's a photo of me, and there's this other kind of feature that is my stuff that I don't know. I wish I had a little less of me in it, but it's cool. Like, I'm the editor of the magazine, but it wasn't really my intention to make it about me.
Yeah, well,
About what I'm into.
there's always
But
next time.
but again, my guy Sean Newton, my photo guy, is such a great photographer. He can make my mediocre writing look so good. That was a cool thing too, to be able to like shoot photos with friends and stuff like that.
It's just keeping that thing that we have inside of us, and all these guys who are still doing it. That thing, that fire inside, is just,
The Stoke brand, is that the word you're looking for?
oh my God, Joe Sisman's gotten to you. Or the Greystoke.
Yep.
Uh,
All
that
right, I think we covered it. That's
I
it.
I think we did too. So what I want to say is, if you haven't heard of Greystoke, go to Instagram, Greystoke BMX. It's right here. I'll pull it up. You can type that in. Dang, you guys are already almost to 1,000 followers.
No shit. Wow, I haven't looked at it in a few hours. That's great.
Well, it's at
Thank,
six
thank
forty four, but hopefully
Oh, what?
by tomorrow it's at 1,000. Every
What'd you say
single
it was?
644.
That's not almost 1,000, Brand.
Listen, I'm on the spot here. We're live.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for hyping it up.
Yeah.
Let's get to 1,000.
So yeah, I mean the whole point of this was just that I saw it coming out, and I think it's amazing that you guys are making this happen, and that somebody's putting this amount of effort into sharing history in BMX with people who are old enough to remember that history happening in a
Yeah.
new form. It's not just like, yes, you're recycling some stuff, but you're adding to it and putting more context there, and I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, thanks. We did try really hard to not um, recycle stuff that's really seen a lot of action. Like, you're not going to see the Vic Murphy tabletop Brad McDonald photo, but you will see some really rad Brad McDonald photos that maybe are lesser known and not, they just haven't seen the light of day. And if they did, it was in 1993, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And all I can think about now is just that the farther reaching implications of something like this, in that you're getting probably Brad McDonald himself stoked to go through old photos and find stuff that didn't
Yeah.
make it in. And then you got other people who see this happening and they're excited, and then they just want to go ride their bikes. And then they got you, somebody who's a BMX lifer, who's working on this and getting to continue working in the industry and doing stuff like this and keeping all of this, the Greystoke, alive.
Yeah. I mean, my friend Sean Newton, who I keep bringing up, told me like he hadn't really been riding, and just shooting all these photos and being involved in this got him so excited about BMX that he, got
Yeah.
back on the horse. That's the idea. That's the goal.
Yeah. So,
The only goal. The goal is to make something that we can all enjoy. But
exactly. So here's a good suggestion from Tony. I think he's in Wisconsin. It would be awesome to see a reader submission section. Just a thought.
Yeah. Okay.
So people can
Send those
find
cards
it.
and
What's that?
send those cards and letters.
Yeah, send it in. So people can find it at Greystoke Magazine. What's the website? GreystokebMX.com. That is it.
Great question.
That's it. I got
Greystoke.
it.
It's GreystokebMX.com. Yep.
And I can't wait to get my hands on it. Do you have any kind of an estimate for when they will come in?
Yeah, it's supposed to be. It's August now, so by the beginning of September, really, hopefully the last week of August. But there's shipping times and all that. But that stuff is pretty. Like printing facilities are usually on schedule. Like that's kind of how they work. So.
Well, awesome, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on here, telling me all about Greystoke, and
Yeah, man.
hopefully this gets the word out there even faster.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me this time and letting me talk about it. And it's pretty awesome. I'm glad I can talk about it freely now. I mean, I was before. Like,
Without being like, oh crap, I said that.
just
All
off the
right.
brand.
Well, everybody, go check it out. Go follow Scott Town on Instagram too to keep up with
Yeah.
his adventures.
You see the same tabletop photo every 3 days.
That's totally fine. And hey, come ride trails. Come ride.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Come ride Stoke Run. It's got
Yeah.
Stoke in the name.
Jesus, how can I pass that up?